The brutal truth. Why playing fair makes you lose? Nietzsche Explains. Okay, let's dive into a topic that might make you a little uncomfortable, but it's something many of us feel deep down, even if we don't always say it out loud. It's this nagging feeling, isn't it? You try to do the right thing. You play by the rules. You're honest. You wait your turn. You treat people with respect. You believe in fairness. But then you look around, and it often seems like the people who bend the rules, the ones who are a bit more, well, ruthless, are the ones who get ahead. The liars, the manipulators, the ones who don't seem to care about fair, they often climb the ladder faster, get the promotions, and seem to have it all. And you're left wondering, what am I doing wrong? Why does playing fair so often feel like a direct path to losing? It's a frustrating, almost infuriating reality to confront. We're taught from a young age that good deeds are rewarded, that honesty is the best policy, and that fairness will ultimately prevail. But the world out there often paints a very different picture. It can feel like a game rigged against those who try to uphold these values. If you've ever felt this way, you're not alone. And surprisingly, a philosopher from over a century ago, Friedrich Nietzsche, had some pretty radical and, frankly, brutal insights into why this might be the case. His ideas aren't easy to swallow, but they might just shed some light on this uncomfortable truth. The rules we're taught and why they might be holding you back. Think about the rules of being a good person that most of us absorbed growing up. Be humble. Don't brag. Be kind. Turn the other cheek. Put others before yourself. Forgive and forget. These are the kinds of values often promoted by society, by religious teachings, by our families. They sound wonderful, don't they? And in many ways, they contribute to a more pleasant and cooperative society. Nietzsche, however, looked at these values with a very critical eye. He called this type of morality the one that champions humility, pity, and selflessness, slave morality. Now, slave morality sounds harsh, but hang in there. Nietzsche wasn't necessarily using it as a direct insult to individuals. He was describing a system of values that he argued originated with those who were historically oppressed, weak, or disempowered. These groups, lacking the physical strength or social power to dominate, re-evaluated the qualities of their oppressors, what their powerful masters called good. Things like strength, pride, assertiveness, even ruthlessness, the oppressed began to label as evil. And conversely, the qualities that helped them survive and endure their hardship, like patience, kindness, humility, pity, they were elevated to the status of good. So, according to Nietzsche, this slave morality, these rules of niceness and self-sacrifice, aren't necessarily divine or inherently superior. Instead, they are a human construct, a brilliant psychological maneuver, if you will, developed by the less powerful to make their condition more bearable and subtly exert moral control over the strong. The big question Nietzsche forces us to ask is, who benefits when everyone adheres to these rules of self-denial and humility? Does it empower the individual to reach their full potential, or does it, perhaps, keep them in a more manageable and less threatening state for those who already hold power, or for the stability of the herd? It's a challenging thought, suggesting that the very moral code many of us strive to live by might, in some ways, be a set of chains we've willingly put on. Nietzsche's bombshell, master morality, and the will to power. If there's a slave morality, Nietzsche argued, there must also be its opposite, master morality. This is the value system of the noble, the strong, the creators, the self-assured individuals who look to themselves to determine what is good. For them, good is what affirms their strength, vitality, and power. It's about pride, self-mastery, creativity, and the assertion of their own will. Things like humility or pity are seen as signs of weakness, not virtues. At the heart of this master morality is one of Nietzsche's most famous and often misunderstood concepts, the will to power. This isn't simply a desire to dominate or tyrannize others, though it can manifest that way in cruder forms. For Nietzsche, the will to power is a fundamental instinctual drive in all living things, a drive to expand, to overcome obstacles, to achieve mastery, to express one's full potential, and to assert oneself in the world. It's the force that pushes a plant to reach for sunlight, an artist to create a masterpiece, an athlete to break records, and yes, a leader to lead. Think about it. When you achieve a difficult goal, when you overcome a challenge, when you create something you're proud of, there's a feeling of expansion, of vitality, of power. That, in essence, is the will to power in action. Those who operate from a master morality embrace this will to power. They don't see ambition as a sin or self-assertion as arrogance. They see it as the natural expression of life itself. Their good is tied to this striving, this overcoming, this self-affirmation. Consequently, bad for them is anything weak, common, or hinders this drive. This is a stark contrast to slave morality, where good is often about selflessness, compassion for the weak, and evil is associated with selfishness and the aggressive assertion of power that the masters value. So, we have two fundamentally different ways of looking at the world and defining what's right and wrong. And this, Nietzsche believed, is at the root of why playing fair by one set of rules can lead to losing in a world where others are playing by a completely different, more self-serving, and power-focused set of rules. Why the unfair seems to win. So how does this connect to why those who seem unfair or ruthless often get ahead? Nietzsche would suggest they are, consciously or unconsciously, operating closer to this master morality and are more freely expressing their will to power. They aren't necessarily evil in the way slave morality would define them. They are simply prioritizing their own growth, advancement, and the acquisition of power, whether that's wealth, status, or influence, according to their internal value system. These individuals are often less burdened by the kind of guilt that might stop someone operating under slave morality. If an action serves their ultimate goal of increasing their power or achieving their vision, the fairness of it to others, or the feelings of others, might be a secondary concern, or no concern at all. They might not waste energy on the fear of judgment or the need for constant external validation that can paralyze someone who's been taught that humility and pleasing others are paramount. They define their own good based on their own drive and ambition. We see echoes of this in modern psychology, particularly in what's known as the dark triad of personality traits: narcissism, an inflated sense of self-importance, a need for admiration; Machiavellianism, a manipulative, cynical, and strategic approach to achieving goals; and psychopathy, a lack of empathy, impulsivity, and antisocial behavior. Studies have shown that individuals high in these traits, while often difficult to deal with on a personal level, can be surprisingly successful in certain competitive environments, like business or politics. They are often charismatic, willing to take risks, and unencumbered by the moral qualms that might hold others back. They see resources, money, attention, loyalty, as prizes to be seized, and they are often very effective at doing so, precisely because they aren't playing fair by the conventional rules. They are playing to win according to their own rules, driven by a powerful, albeit sometimes distorted, will to power. The good person's dilemma, trapped by your own rules. This brings us to the dilemma of the good person, the one who genuinely tries to play fair. If Nietzsche is right, then strictly adhering to the rules of slave morality, humility, self-sacrifice, constant concern for others' feelings over your own needs, can, paradoxically, become a trap. It can lead to a few common, frustrating experiences. First, there's guilt over goals. You might feel ambitious, you might have big dreams, but a part of you feels selfish or wrong for wanting those things, especially if it means competing with others or not being humble enough. This guilt can sabotage your efforts before you even begin. Then there's the fairness fallacy. You work hard, you're honest, you do the right thing, and you expect the world, or at least the people in it, to recognize this and reward you accordingly. When this doesn't happen, when someone less deserving or less scrupulous gets ahead, it can lead to deep disillusionment and bitterness. Nietzsche would argue that the universe doesn't inherently care about fairness in the way we often define it. There's also empathy exhaustion. If you're always absorbing others' pain, trying to fix their problems, and putting their needs first, you can end up completely drained, burnt out, and even taken advantage of. While you're busy being kind, rivals who are more focused on their objectives might be exploiting that very kindness to get ahead. And finally, there's the fear of offending or rejection. This can make you hold back from asserting your own needs, from speaking your truth, or from challenging a status quo that isn't working for you, all because you don't want to be seen as pushy or unkind. Nietzsche's challenging point is that these virtues, when taken to an extreme or followed blindly without self-awareness, can become the very chains that prevent you from fully expressing your own will to power, from living a truly vibrant and self-directed life. You end up playing a game by rules that weren't necessarily designed for your individual triumph, but perhaps for the comfort and control of the collective, or for those who already have an advantage. Reclaiming your power without becoming a monster. Now, this is crucial. Nietzsche's philosophy is not a green light to become a selfish, ruthless monster who tramples over everyone to get what they want. That's a common misinterpretation. His ideal, the Übermensch, or Overman, wasn't about oppressing others for the sake of it, but about self-overcoming. Overcoming your own limitations, your own herd instincts, and the imposed moralities to create your own values and live authentically. It's about becoming the master of yourself, not necessarily of others. So, how can you apply this without losing your humanity? First, question every should. When you feel you should do something or shouldn't do something because it's not nice or fair, ask yourself, who told me this? Where did this rule come from? And most importantly, who benefits if I follow this rule? Does it truly serve my growth and my highest values, or does it serve to keep me small and compliant? Second, conduct a will to power audit. For a week, try to observe your decisions. How many of them are driven by a genuine desire for your own goals, your own expansion, your own joy? And how many are driven by fear of what others will think, by guilt, by a need for external approval, or by a blind adherence to shoulds? This self-awareness is the first step. Third, embrace creative destruction. This sounds dramatic, but it simply means that sometimes, to build something new and better for yourself, you have to be willing to dismantle or let go of old beliefs, habits, relationships, or situations that are holding you back, even if it's uncomfortable or makes others uncomfortable. This isn't bad or evil. It's often a necessary part of growth and self-creation. Quitting the soul-crushing job, confronting the toxic friend, saying no to things that drain you. These can be acts of affirming your will to power. Finally, and most importantly, define your own good. Instead of passively accepting the moral codes handed to you, Nietzsche encourages you to actively create your own values. What truly empowers you? What makes you feel alive and strong? What aligns with your deepest sense of purpose and potential? This becomes your new, authentic moral compass, one that guides you towards self-mastery and the fulfillment of your unique will to power, not one that keeps you shackled to the expectations of the herd. The path to true freedom. The brutal truth, as Nietzsche might see it, is that playing fair by the conventional, often unexamined, rules of society can indeed make you lose, especially if those rules are subtly designed to suppress individual strength and self-assertion in favor of collective conformity. Those who seem to win by unfair means are often simply playing a different game, one governed by a more primal, self-affirming drive, their will to power, unburdened by the moral anxieties that can hold back the good and fair person. Nietzsche's message, then, isn't an endorsement of cruelty or a call to abandon all ethical considerations. It's a radical call to wake up. It's an invitation to examine the chains of imposed morality, to question the shoulds that govern your life, and to dare to cultivate your strength, create your values, and live authentically according to your own powerful, life-affirming will to power. It's about realizing that true freedom, and perhaps even true goodness, on your terms might lie in breaking free from the very rules you thought were essential to being good in the first place. So the question isn't just, why does playing fair make you lose? The real question Nietzsche leaves us with is, are you ready to stop playing by rules that don't serve your highest potential and start defining what winning truly means for you on your terms? Perhaps it's time to break a few of those old, unexamined rules.